Hi, Alex here from Rebeloper.com and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to this awesome tutorial series on AutoLayout with TinyConstraints in Swift 5. So let's get to today's episode. Okay, welcome back to the video and we are going to talk about today animating constraints and views. So just a quick note on the previous episode, and if you don't already know, go ahead and click the link down below where you can see all of these episodes. It's basically a playlist and you can follow along so you don't get weird of what's this, what's that. And in the previous episode I have built out, I will show you this stack of views relatively easily. It's just as simple as these few lines of code, and as you can see it's pretty complicated. Now one thing that I forgot to tell you, and this is really important, that you could use UI stack views, but there is a disadvantage of UI stack views. Now most of our apps have table views or collection views. Now these have cells, and if you use UI stack views in those cells, then you would have a major memory issue, because UI stack views do their constraints dynamically. So they just calculate your cell sizing constraints with dynamically, and that is a real issue when you start reloading your cells. So yeah, you should definitely use TinyConstraints stack for this purpose. Okay, so that being out of the way, let's jump right into today's mission, and that is animating our views. And yeah, I will just simply delete all of this, and I'm just going to start off from scratch. And if you don't already know, TinyConstraints is on GitHub and it's from Robert Hein. And let's just scroll all the way down where you can see that it is saying storing constraints. So we can store some constraints and then we can activate them or deactivate them. And I'm just telling you this because after that we can animate those changes to the constraints, because yeah, we can activate or rather yet deactivate the old constraints and then activate the new ones, and rather just simply popping out all of those new constraints, we are going to animate those changes. So let's see here we have our example, and you could use this to any type of constraint, but yeah, this is really good. So we are sizing our view, and yeah, let's have this as a constraint, and I'm just copying it and pasting it. Yeah, maybe I will just add this, and because we cannot have stored properties in our extension, I will basically need to add this to our class. And yeah, let's just add that, and let's see old constraints, or rather yet starting constraints, but once we animate them they will be old, so that's why I wanted to do that. So I will add this to our view 1. So yeah, and let this be a lazy variable. Okay, and yeah, so we are adding this so it can be executed, or rather yet accessed throughout our class. So there we go. Here we have our old constraints for the size. Yeah, and yeah, I'm just going to animate just the size for now, but you could add as much as you want. So this is the size, and I'm just going to pin this to the origin. And let me just go back, and if you followed along this tutorial series, then you already know what I'm doing here. I'm just saying view 1 origin to super view with some tiny insets. Okay, and let the top be 32, already that's just 16. Again, left 16, bottom 0, and right 0 because we are not using this. And relation priority is active, and using safe area will be there, so true. Okay, so let's see. Well, basically this isn't going to render out anything. Let's just build and run, because we haven't activated basically our size constraints. As you can see here, is active is set to false. So let's go ahead and on old constraints, let's activate. So after we have pinned to the origin of our super view, let's see, old constraints and activate. There we go. And that should activate the size constraints, and we should see our blue view here. And I will make this a little larger with the help of animation. But for now, let's create some new constraints. Let's go back here. Let me just simply copy and paste this just for brevity. And let's see here, new constraints, view one size. Let's make it double. Or rather yet, even the height. Let's see, the width should be 300 and the height 200. And of course, this is also not active because we want to deactivate our old constraints and then activate our new constraints. So let's see here. After we have activated, yeah, this will happen in a fraction of a second, but bear with me. So old constraints deactivate, and yeah, once we build and run, we will basically not see anything because the old constraints are activated and deactivated after that in just milliseconds. So what we want to do after that, we want to activate our new constraints. So new constraints activate. Okay, so we are deactivating our old constraints and activating our new constraints, and now we should see the larger blue view. There we go. So let's animate this, and this will be pretty simple because we just need to self layout if needed for the view on with our UI view property animator after we activate our constraints. So let's do that, and let's see here. We need to have our view. There we go. Our view set to layout if needed, and I will set this duration to 5, and yeah, so we can see that. And of course you don't have to add our damping ratio, but yeah, it should be really interesting to see. Okay, there we go. It's resizing, and in 5 seconds it's there. Of course we could have this set to, let's say, 2 seconds, so the animation would be real fast. So make sure that you set the views layout if needed inside our UI view property animator, and of course you need to start the animation, and you can set the duration. Now that is it for animations, and of course you can use this to change other types of constraints, well, basically any type of constraint that you have learned throughout this tutorial series. Now, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Hit that notification bell, and of course subscribe before that. And I really like to emphasize that you should hit the notification bell, because once you subscribe, maybe you get our videos on your feed, maybe you don't, but if you do hit that notification bell, then you get notified by email. And yeah, that is super awesome, because you will be notified tomorrow when I launch the next video on the TinyConstraints auto layout series. And as usual, I will see you in the next one.